Welcome to the Deacs.AI podcast, where Wake Forest innovators unpack the real-world magic of artificial intelligence through candid conversations. I'm Michael Ferrari.
I'm Ryan Scholl.
Please join us as we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming work across campus, one fascinating story at a time. AI can brainstorm, prototype, and accelerate ideas, but it can't replace the human drive behind entrepreneurship. Gill joins Deacs.AI to unpack what it really means to be entrepreneurial, why authentic experiences create the best innovations, and how AI is forcing educators to rethink teaching, learning, and academic integrity. Whether you're building a startup, teaching in higher education, or trying to understand AI's impact on creativity, this episode offers practical insights into where humans still have the edge.
Welcome to Deacs.AI, still the #1 higher education artificial intelligence podcast at Wake Forest University. We are here today with Rebecca Gill. She's a communication and entrepreneurship professor here at Wake Forest with a particular focus on entrepreneurial identity. So I was reading about some of your published work around entrepreneurial, I can't even say that word. We're just going to go with entrepreneurial identity.
That's fair.
What is that? Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, no, I can't say it. Entrepreneurial identity. Well, there's definitely different ways to think about it. The way that I always think about identity is that there's like the way that people create or cultivate identities is they pick up ideas from the world around them and they try to integrate those ideas into who they are, who they think they are. And so the entrepreneurial identity to me is, what does the world mean, or what does our society mean when it says so-and-so is an entrepreneur? And that suggests that there's a particular kind of, I don't know, like performance or way of being or attitude or practice around the concept of entrepreneurship. So I'm very interested in, how do people who self-identify as entrepreneurs think that they are an entrepreneur? You know, when a person says, I'm an entrepreneur, what does that mean to them? And how does that sense of self connect with or not to our larger social sense of who is an entrepreneur? So if we say in the social, like let's say we say in media, I always ask my students every year, I ask them, name 5 entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And they always say Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. For a while there, it was Sarah Blakely, who is very famous because of Spanx. So she got on some people's radars. The people who founded Glossier for a while were named. So a couple of the other names changed. Sometimes it's even Donald Trump. And then we look at actual regular entrepreneurs in the world, though, and the regular entrepreneurs are not Elon Musk, and they're not Steve Jobs, and they're not Bill Gates. So who are they? Who do they think they are? So that's, I don't know, a very...
So it's not a black or white. Isn't it just if you start a business? Is that...
No, not for me. Now, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some people would say there's a distinction in the management scholarship on whether or not entrepreneurs must be people who innovate, so truly start something new, create something that was never created before, or if entrepreneurs can be people who replicate, which, the idea of like you open a dry cleaner in your town. Some people would say, well, you're not an entrepreneur because you're just replicating something that's already out there, or a franchise owner wouldn't be an entrepreneur. Those distinctions mean almost nothing to me. In my own research, I'm more interested in, why do you think you're an entrepreneur? And it really opens up my scholarship to talk to a lot of different people about a variety of the things that they do, and sometimes academics will say they are entrepreneurs, or at least entrepreneurial. And so a lot of my work around identity is not specifically about entrepreneur, but entrepreneurial or entrepreneurialism.
So what's the difference
Between
an entrepreneur and somebody who's entrepreneurial?
Yeah.
That word.
Man, that's a great question. So again, I would say the difference is, how does that person, right? Does that person say they are an entrepreneur? And I would take for granted, I would accept that. If you said you're an entrepreneur, I would say, great, I believe you. And then we would talk about why you think that. I think the difference comes in the fact, I guess I could say, that most people in the world do associate entrepreneurship with owning a business.
Mhm.
So, and they might say, you can't be an entrepreneur. If you don't own a business, you can't be an entrepreneur. But my argument is, okay, like, so I would say, okay, sure, let's take that for granted then. In that case, you might be entrepreneurial or you might have an entrepreneurial mindset. And so that really is what shifts into my teaching. So a lot of my teaching, I assume our students are going to go into the world and they are going to need to act and think and behave and emote entrepreneurially. Whether or not they're going to start their own businesses, who knows? But in most workplaces today, they are going to need to be entrepreneurial or be entrepreneurial thinkers.
So it can just be like a mindset,
Yeah.
creating something new, providing new value.
Yeah, I mean, new value.
And it doesn't have to be monetary.
Yeah, yes. And I would say it doesn't even have to be new value in the sense, it could just be providing value.
Okay.
So one example of that would be there's a class I teach every spring, and then I teach it the first semester every summer, called Communicating for an Entrepreneurial Mindset.
Mhm.
And we do a lot of work, we do theory and practice around working in teams, just how to be a good team member. And so if they go into the workplace, again, I assume they're going to be working in teams. If they can be a good team member, they are providing value. Not necessarily new, not necessarily innovative value, but I think today you don't just go to work and do your job and go home anymore. It's not that classic 1950s model of, I go to work, I got all my TPS reports in, and now like I'm just gonna
Close the briefcase. Yeah.
it's 5 o'clock. I'm going home.
Oh,
I
gosh.
said hi to.
You can stop at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, right. That's a thing. What?
Huh?
And like maybe you talked to a couple people, but you probably didn't do too much coordinating or collaborating. Like you just did your job and kept your head down. And nowadays, it's such a different environment. And I think just being a good human being in the workplace today is value.
So I need you to help me define a concept. Michael cannot stop bragging about this fitness app he's created. Is he a hero entrepreneur?
You've mentioned it more than me.
Is he a hero entrepreneur because he's bragging about it? Yeah.
Creative editing, Michael.
Oh,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah. I would go back to my
So
original.
what is a hero entrepreneur?
Well, I would go back to my original point, which is, Michael, do you say you're a hero entrepreneur?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what a hero entrepreneur is. I would think I would never call myself an entrepreneur, specifically because anyone I've ever met who called themselves that, they weren't. This is gonna sound mean. They weren't successful. Like I felt like they were either doing one of those multi-level marketing things, or they were like snake oil salesmen. So I kind of don't believe in someone calling themselves an entrepreneur. I think that maybe they should be called that by other people, if that makes sense.
Right. And that's one of the things that I try to get at is like, if somebody says they're not, again, if somebody says they're an entrepreneur, why do they say it? What do they mean by it? And Michael, I have interviewed people I would say are legitimate entrepreneurs, and they also, though, they've said, I feel really weird about that word. Like it's a weird word today, and I feel like it's a word that we all take for granted that everybody knows what it is. But if you, as we're doing now, when you actually start to talk to people about what it is, you realize all of our conceptions about what it means kind of just fall away, because it is ultimately a social construct. So a hero entrepreneur, I would say, again, it's a made up term. It's socially constructed. And I think that there's a couple ways to think about it, though. So certainly there are some like programs and institutes that have tried to brand this idea of a hero entrepreneur. The idea that all entrepreneurs are heroes because they're bettering the world, they're fixing the world, they're innovating the world. So there's that, right? There's this idea of just, I think built into the idea of entrepreneur is the idea that they're always working for the common good and they're always trying to make people's lives better. Of course, that's not always true. We can find lots of counter examples of that. So I think the very idea of entrepreneur presumes like you're doing something heroic. Um, and then I also do think they would never call themselves this, but social entrepreneurs are often seen in a heroic kind of light because they may truly be trying to, change the lives of a marginalized community, or they might be truly trying to better the way that children get lunches over the summer or something like that. So there's it's kind of built into the term, but then also I do think that social entrepreneurs sometimes get put into that flavor of entrepreneur. I'm going to say that Michael's probably not a hero entrepreneur, though.
He's a
Sorry.
hero, though.
He is a hero. He's definitely a hero.
No,
I
it's true.
try.
He's a
I
hero.
try.
So with the students you teach, do they come into entrepreneurship with the idea, the majority of them, I'm coming in because I want to start a business?
So I'm going to say probably not. So in the entrepreneurship program, I teach the elective courses.
Mhm.
And so I get a blend of students who are entrepreneur minors
Mhm.
and a blend of students who are communication majors, because
Okay.
my courses are cross-listed
Yep.
between both. So it's hard for me to say specifically about the students in the entrepreneurship program, but I'm going to say in my experience, no, they don't. Most of them today don't come in saying, I am going to be a capital E entrepreneur. Certainly there are some, and we do get our fair number of students who have started their own businesses in a variety of ways. Some of them might be, anywhere from a student who has done a lawn mowing business in their neighborhood back in high school to recently, I think she may have graduated or she's about to graduate, a student who runs a very successful boutique, like an actual brick and mortar boutique store back in her hometown. And it's her own. So it's very impressive in that sense. But most of the students come in wanting to know how to get a great job right out of college. And they know that entrepreneurship is part of that, but they don't know why, or they don't know what that means. Like they have a inkling that like, I should be taking these entrepreneurship classes. I should be an entrepreneurship minor. I would say the majority of them don't really know why that is. They just know they're attracted to it, or they know it's going to unlock something for them.
You made a comment when we were talking before how the humans are still at the heart of entrepreneurship, and the humans are the ones with the great ideas. So
Mhm.
their heart still needs to be in it. And to bring this around to artificial intelligence, AI can help, but the human needs to be the foundation of that.
I think so. My thought there, and I am really open to changing my mind on this and probably will change my mind, like go back and forth 5 times over the next 5 years as AI keeps evolving. But right now, my thought about AI and entrepreneurship is that, is exactly as you said, a human still needs to do the work in the long run. I think that AI can be a very useful tool to help people generate ideas, to help people maybe put two ideas together, two things together that they didn't normally think about putting together. Which is it's one of the ways we might define entrepreneurship is taking two things and combining them. Um, so I think, can help with that brainstorming, that sense making around coming up with an idea of something you want to do. But at the end of the day, like if you're still just sitting on the couch and not doing anything about it, then nothing is going to get done about it. And let me be clear, I'm fully okay with sitting on the couch and not doing anything. We all need to do that too. But at the end of the day, if you're not going out there and actually taking the idea off of your computer screen after talking with AI and bringing it in the real world, then it doesn't go anywhere. It just still stays in AI. So yeah, I think humans right now, at least, AI is not going to be doing all of our entrepreneurship for us right now, at least. Humans still need to be the ones making it happen.
The people in the AI will lead to abundance camp say that AI is changing the capital E entrepreneurship world, and anybody can be an entrepreneur now, and everybody should be an entrepreneur. Have you seen a big shift in student success in a wild range of students now starting businesses?
I have not. Yeah, and not in the past, let's say 2 years,
Hmm.
and it's probably been about 2 years that our students have really
Sure.
figured out AI.
Well, it hasn't completely taken over.
No, 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 not here,
Yeah.
not at Wake at least. Yeah.
I'm curious too, to piggyback onto that. Is there any I guess, like, are you seeing students that are pursuing entrepreneurship really led by like a passion, so like what you mentioned, like with the boutique or a lawn mowing business or something like that? Or are you seeing a lot more of just like they just want to start a business? They don't want to work for somebody, kind of like, is there heart in it, or is it morely like financial, I guess?
Hmm. I think it's a mix. I would say it's 50-50. I absolutely see students who want to develop new ways to be in the world and to, solve social problems. They don't necessarily think of themselves as entrepreneurs, though,
Mm.
going back to what we were talking about earlier. I think the students who see themselves as entrepreneurs, who would claim that label, they are more the students who are developing a product, or, like a consumer product, or they're developing an app. It's much more about the business side of things. I'm not saying they're necessarily, I wouldn't say they're necessarily doing it to become wealthy. I don't know that that's their mission, but they see a problem, they have a solution, and they have the tools and resources at Wake to bring it into fruition, versus the students who have, more deeper social mission kinds of ideas, but they don't necessarily see themselves as entrepreneurs.
So let's brag about our entrepreneurship program for a little while. Well, our longtime listeners have heard me talk about how long I've been here, but I've been here for a while, and I've watched the entrepreneurship
Yeah.
program basically rise from the ashes. There was very little, and now it's quite a strong program.
Hmm.
I think in society, more people want to be entrepreneurs, right? They want to create something, and our program has now given them the tools and
Hmm.
given some frameworks, and we have a lot of great faculty and administrators. Do you think AI enables these students to do more? And maybe students who didn't think they could do stuff before, now AI could be one of those tools to get them either started or over that hump.
I do, yes. And sidebar, I will further brag about the entrepreneurship program. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but on, any given year, we are the largest minor on
Mhm.
campus. I think we end up having upwards of 400 minors, maybe even more. And, on a campus of about 5,000 students,
Yeah.
like that's not nothing. Um, so what that means is we get a lot of different students coming through. We get the business students, but we also get the art studio, studio art
Mhm.
students, and we get the English students, and we get the philosophers. So yeah, there are a lot of different students with a lot of different passions and skill sets coming through our program. So your question about whether or not AI can help them get over the hump, or help them maybe find the thing that they do want to work on, I do think it can. I think it does lower some of the barriers to finding your idea and finding out if your idea is worth spending time on or not. Um, but again, you still have to be the one at the end of the day to go and do the thing. But yeah,
So it's a tool. It doesn't replace things. It's just one of those tools in your toolkit that the person still needs to be the entrepreneur.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So this past week, last week, I judged for one of the summer camps that Wake does is for
The summer immersion.
summer immersion
Yes.
program. Yep, we have like 40 high school students come and do an entrepreneurship, a week of learning about entrepreneurship, and then at the end of the week they pitch their ideas. And so I saw 13 high school teams of high school students pitch their entrepreneurial ideas. And honestly, the only difference that I saw between this year and the previous years, I've done it maybe 4 or 5 times. The only difference is this year the students had very nice websites already set up. They had QR codes. Scan this QR code, go to our website. Some of them had designed their app already, but that was it. I mean, the ideas themselves weren't necessarily any different, not to say they were any better or any worse. And the students hadn't necessarily done any more customer validation or any more testing of their ideas than they had in past years. Some of the students still missed out on being able to accurately identify who their competition was. Even though you could argue, well, AI should tell you who all your competitors are. I don't know if they just didn't ask AI for that or what, but they didn't. I guess to wrap it up, yeah, like
that brings up a really interesting point, because I also judged summer immersion, not entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It was a different one. I did the same thing. Now, what shocked me was these students had 4 days to create this.
It happens so fast.
And so they were able to throw up this website or this app, because I saw a lot of websites and apps as well. The ideas, the ideas were hit or miss. But what did intrigue me about those was these were high school students.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed. Well, not all of them, let's be honest, but some of them, I turned to the other judges, I said, these kids are in high school? And you could definitely tell the ones that used AI to replace their thinking, those actually weren't as good.
Yeah.
Versus the ones that brainstormed with AI, because when they had to do the presentations, you weren't just looking at a slide or a website, you were going back and forth with the student, asking questions. And those are the ones you could tell really worked with the AI to develop an idea.
Yeah.
And that's what I was most impressed about.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. And so did you feel like the ideas that they developed with AI, they had more traction, they were more realistic? Like, what was it about that?
Yes, because I felt like they had looked at edge cases and use cases. I had a lot more questions for the students that kind of mailed it in.
Yeah.
They weren't thinking through everything. I had less questions for the ones who had a more fleshed out presentation. There wasn't as much stuff that I could ask, because they presented all. And then when I did ask the questions, they were prepared with their answers.
Yeah.
So they had done the work of saying, oh, I'm going to go deeper into this.
Yeah.
So you could tell the ones that just hit a button and had something produced versus the ones, they did this in teams. So obviously they were working together, but you could also tell when they went a little deeper into a topic.
Yeah. And one of the things that's making me think of too is how much more authentically I connect with a pitch if it's clear that this is an issue that somebody on the team had, even if it's a high school team. Some of the pitches, they opened up by telling a story about a frustration that they themselves had, a specific instance that they themselves had. And then there were other teams where, and I don't know if they had used AI for this, but there were other teams that presented a solution to a problem that was a problem like 50-year-olds have, like a problem their parent, like maybe they once heard their parents complain about this, or maybe AI gave it to them. I don't know, but it was really strange. Like, why you're 16 years old? Why are you trying to solve this problem? And so I don't know if that's AI or not, but I will say, and that I think is where AI cannot do this job, which is creating that personal connection, making it clear that this is important to that person because of this experience they had versus a more flat idea.
I'm so glad you said that, because one of the presentations that we destroyed in the judging, these students were developing an app for senior citizens to get some services. And the judges were just like, you have no concept
Yeah.
of your audience or your TAM,
Yep.
this
Yep.
phrase, to use an entrepreneurial word. Um, they just didn't get it. And so you could tell that even when they were brainstorming, they they never like red teamed it
Yeah.
or
Now, if
tried to go back and forth.
Yeah.
now, do you think that's really indicative though of their heart not really being in it? Because maybe if they truly did care, like this kind of bizarre idea for high school students to come up with this senior citizen app, like maybe it would have kind of resonated better if it was like something they actually truly cared about.
That that definitely could have been the case. What I saw was, yeah, they kind of mailed it in and they didn't necessarily do their homework on it. So they didn't say, hey, push back on me. It was
Yeah.
kind of a one button, produce this idea rather than using it as a thinking partner, going back and forth. So if they cared about it, they probably would have
Yeah.
dug deeper.
Part of that is because of, as you said, it's 4 days. They're all
Mhm.
trying to work super fast to get this thing done. They're in teams with brand new people who they've never met before.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of forming, storming kinds of group
Mhm.
work going on at the beginning. And then possibly some of them just at the end are like, we just got to get an idea, like any idea, we just got to go for it. And so hopefully, if a young person is going to work on any of these ideas for a longer length of
Mhm.
time, and this is the adage anyway, is never go with your first idea, like fail fast, get it out of the way, and then move on. So hopefully those students whose hearts weren't in it, it's just probably the nature of the 4 day week.
See, I think the whole idea of like this world of abundance, I actually think that is absolutely like very real. Except I like what you just said. I don't think it's even getting to the fail aspect, like failing fast. I think there's kind of like this
Mhm.
sugar rush going on of people seeing how easy it is to make something seem real. And then once it gets to kind of having to put, really put the work in, then they're kind of like, well, the creating part was more fun.
Yep.
So let's go
Yep.
back to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
I could totally agree. And yes, maybe somebody could develop an app over a weekend, which, I mean, people could do that in the past too. It's just more
Sure.
people can do it now. Develop your app, you put it out there, and maybe you get 500 or 1,000 or 3,000 people, buy your app for 99 cents on the App Store, and you feel like, great, I did it. This is amazing. And then that drops off. That's
Mhm.
just like you said, rush of the first week. You get all these subscribers or all these users, and then that's it. That's just the first push. And now if you wanted to keep going, you have to do the work now
Mhm.
at that point.
Yeah.
And I agree that a lot of people at that point will say, "Oh, I don't want to actually do this. I just wanted to put something out there and get likes or follows or get that like adrenaline rush."
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the discussions I had with things like that, it doesn't even get to the launching phase. Like it pretty much
Yeah.
gets to like, yeah, like it seemed pretty good to go. And then they just moved on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where that's why I think the human is still important.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Not to say that things can't be, I do certainly think that things can be automated, that companies can put systems in place where, something entrepreneurial might happen, but not in the way we're talking about, not in the way
Mhm.
of like, innovating something big and moving it forward. I just think a human still needs to be part of that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your teaching,
Yeah.
but just before we leave, let's give a shout out to that summer immersion program because it is an amazing program. Anybody doesn't know about it, look up the Wake Forest summer immersion program. I wasn't intending to highlight it, but it's such a fantastic program. There's so many different topics and subjects, and students from around the world participate. So,
Yeah, yes, there were students from 4 or 5 different countries just in the week that I was part of, the judging that I was part of. And if somebody had told me when I was a high school kid that I could go stay on a college campus for a week, my mind would have been blown. Yeah.
and the professors they get access to,
Hmm.
it's rock star. So, I enjoyed being part of it this year, and it was just a lot of fun. And I recommend anybody with high school students check it out.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
walk into the classroom with you.
Yes.
What is your classroom like? How do you integrate AI or not integrate AI? And what does your syllabus look like?
Yeah. So this is such a pertinent question right now because the class I mentioned earlier, Communicating for an Entrepreneurial Mindset, I teach it every spring and summer one. And when I teach it summer one, it's all asynchronous online. So the students,
And spring is in person.
Spring's in person. Yeah. Spring's full semester in person.
For any
one.
Wake Forest people or non-Wake Forest people don't know that most of our fall and spring classes are in person.
Yeah. Yeah. And then our summer classes more and more are becoming online, for better or for worse. So I have put a lot of thought into what does this class look like in person versus online? How are students going to interpret the class and take it in and digest it when they're fully online? They're all around the world. I do make them work in teams for that class. So even though it's asynchronous online, they may choose to try to get together with their teams on Zoom if they're all in agreeable time zones. But it has changed since AI became so prevalent for college students today. The way that I've seen students engage with that class has changed, and I've just spent probably 3 full days just trying to redesign the class for next year. And I have to say, sadly, I do not have any answers yet to how to really integrate or not integrate AI into that class.
Why have you had to redesign the class?
Well, so this is what I learned this year more than any other year. It's so obvious that they are using AI for everything.
AI becoming more prevalent has caused you to redesign.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I had previously designed the class to be very tactile. So the online class, it's 5 weeks. They do these sort of ongoing readings and short sort of low stakes assignments. So they have to, read a 10-page article from Forbes magazine, then they watch a 5-minute video, and then they might have to write a short reflection. And they do that throughout the week. So there's, I call them short focused activities. It's a concept I got from one of my colleagues. And they do several of them throughout every single week as a way to keep them engaged in the online class, like always engaged and checking in. It's how I can make sure that they are understanding the material. And so I designed the class that way probably 3 years ago, just sat down and redesigned the whole thing in that way. And now here it is 3 years later, I'm redesigning it yet again. So I feel a little bit upset about that. But initially, the class was, I think, a really nice way to get them checking in and so that I could get to know them through their assignments, even though I would never actually meet them in person. Now, what I learned this past summer is, they're just using AI for everying. And
in ways that you didn't intend them.
In ways that I didn't intend or even expect. Okay. And I'll give you some examples. Sure. To the degree where my initial idea of, all these low stakes assignments are great for getting them to check in, it's just bypassing that idea now. That, they're checking in, I guess, in the sense that they're feeding the assignment through AI, but it doesn't help the pedagogy anymore.
You are designing assignments with an intention of some kind of objective or learning objective, and they're bypassing that just to get the check in the box.
Yeah. And so I did see this a little bit last year. Last year for the summer class, I added personal journals for the first time because I thought, well, this will be another way for me to try to help check in with them, make sure that they're learning and digesting the material from afar. And at the time, idiot me, I thought, well, they can't use AI to complete a personal journal. Oh my gosh, they did last year, but this year even more so. And
personal vlogs, that's the solution.
Yeah.
Vlogs, I think so.
Oh, come on, you can do fake video.
I know, but if you go through that trouble at that point, hey, God bless.
That's actually something that I'm thinking of doing. I didn't think about vlogs. That's actually a great idea. I think for next year, I'm thinking about maybe I have to add synchronous but remote exams, like oral exams, where like they jump on Zoom with me for 15 minutes
Mhm.
and I ask 3 questions and grade them on the questions. Yeah.
So I'm torn on this, and I was talking to a family member recently who is, pursuing a PhD, and they're thinking about getting into teaching. They do, they're a teacher's assistant now and everything. And he kind of raised the point, like he's starting to wonder if, like, if people want to come here, like they want to go somewhere and just check a box. He was saying, at what point should he just start considering, like, if that's what you're going to do and that's what you want to get out of it, then that's what you're here for. And
Mm.
like it'll hurt you in the long run. I'm just curious if that's like anything like you've discussed with others or thought yourself. I'm torn on
Yeah.
what I feel about it, honestly. I can see both views.
I mean, and I absolutely I understand that as well, and I've often thought that. So I've been teaching since 2001 in my master's program. We got to teach as, instructors of record. So I've been teaching for quite a long time, and I've always thought, you know what? If you're going to cheat, I'm not going to, you know, like it's not always a mountain I need to climb. Like if a student is going to cheat, I'm not going to track them down. I'm not going to, investigate them unless it's obvious. If it's obvious, I'll
Yeah.
absolutely do something about it. But if a student's cheating, that's going to happen. That's on them. But it used to be that it was only one student a semester, or maybe three. I'm not naive. Maybe a smattering more than that. I'm not entirely sure. But, it was like that student's going to do it, and whatever. That student is going to deal with themselves throughout the course of their life. Um, but now and this is what really struck me about this current summer semester online, was how much the students have just made it part of their work that they don't think it's cheating, even though my syllabus
Yeah.
says, and I think I've come up with at least one way I hope to make this more clear, but my syllabus says they can use AI to brainstorm, brainstorm ideas. They can use it to get ideas on how to organize some assignments if it's an assignment that needs organizing. Um, and they can use it for light editing, things like checking their grammar and things like that. Um, but there were students who, they would put their ideas into, let's say, ChatGPT and ask Chat to write an assignment for them. And so I had a few Zoom calls with these students to find out what had happened, what was going on, what was their thinking, because I never assume the student's wrong or the student cheated. I always want to have a conversation with them first. And it floored me how many of them said, "Oh, well, I just used Chat to help me like write it, but it was all my own ideas." And they don't even see it as a problem. Um, that it's still their idea. It's still it still comes from their mind, is what they tell themselves. And so having Chat create the thing that comes from their mind, um, there was no sense of, I don't want my students to feel shame, but there was no sense of shame, like no sense of like, oh my God, my teacher just caught me cheating, like none of that. It was just like, oh, well, I just used Chat. I had my idea and Chat wrote it and then I turned it in.
We talked to quite a few students on air and off air,
Hmm.
how have prep calls with them, emails back and forth. And the sense that at least I've gotten from a bunch is they're confused.
Yes, yes.
A lot of them have come from high school where AI was banned,
Hmm.
complete cheating. Nobody ever taught them the correct way to use it.
Yeah.
Then they come to college and they get a complete mix of perspectives from different faculty. Some faculty are very AI forward, some
Hmm.
are complete negative anti-AI, and then there's the 80% that are in the middle. And the students are just so utterly confused because every professor for every class has a different policy. And they, as you pointed out, don't necessarily understand
Yeah.
academic integrity and
Right.
what is considered by maybe one professor as cheating versus another. And so I don't want to say we've completely done a disservice, but I think it's incumbent on the education system to help the students understand. And every professor doesn't have to educate every student on how to use AI, but just have that conversation with
Absolutely,
them.
yeah. And I think honestly, in my experience at least, I mean, I'll put this on myself. I think in general, I've always done a bit of a disservice when it comes to academic dishonesty. I have got a very comprehensive plagiarism statement in
Mhm.
my syllabus, but I spend very little time in my class talking about what academic dishonesty actually is or what it could look like, and some cases where,
Because maybe we're of a different generation.
yeah.
We think that's obvious,
Yes, yeah, yeah, we
right?
do. We think it's
Yeah.
like, of course, it's obvious, and
See,
I
that's
was
that's part of it. Sorry to interrupt, but
that's right.
that's part of, I think, the rake or whatever that some people are stepping on,
I like that.
with allowing more AI in the classroom is, I think, especially if you've been doing something for decades,
Yes.
I think it's very easy to appreciate how awesome AI is for you who's teaching this and been doing this for 40, 50 years maybe. And you're not seeing what you're actually missing out on,
Mhm.
like in what the students then aren't able to get out of it.
Yes, and so the conversations I've had over the past 2 years with students who I either suspect or they admit they've used AI, um, a lot of times I start off the conversation by saying, "Look, you're not in trouble. But I think you used AI." I mean, I say it more gently than that, but, I say,
Mhm.
"You're not in trouble, but I think you used AI, but you're not in trouble. I really wanna know how you used it. Like,
Mhm.
what was going on in your mind? Why did you use it? Which platform did you" like,
Mhm.
I'm trying to get into their sense of how they think it through, and I had this I oh my gosh, you guys, I had this speechless moment this summer when I noticed. So I had put out a slide deck, and the slide deck, in again online asynchronous class, it's all work on their own. The students were supposed to go through the slide deck and then take a quiz once they went through the slide deck. Um, and two students had taken the quiz, no problem. They both got an 80 or 100 or something like that. And then I had a student email me to say, "Professor Gill, the slide deck isn't opening. The link is broken." And that's when I learned those two students who had done it obviously had to have used AI because the link was broken. There's no way they could have. So either they are experts on labor organizing at 20 years of age, or they just went and they didn't even try to open the slide deck and they just went and did the quiz online. And so one of them, I talked to both of them, but one of them, I asked him how he had taken the quiz, like, how he had accessed the material and taken the quiz. And he said, "Oh, well, I just took the questions and I put them into Google." And he just looked at me. He said it like no big deal. Like, "Oh yeah, well, I did that by taking the questions and putting them into Google." I was speechless. And I stuttered, I was like, so you just put him into Google?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, why?" Even now,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
like I can't get my head around it.
So do you classify that as cheat? Like, honestly, like, do you consider
Well,
that he cheated or?
I mean, this
Yeah.
kid, he was like doing like playing 4D chess with
Yeah.
me because what he says to me is, "I didn't know how open book the quizzes could be. I mean, I just was using the resources that were available to me to answer the questions." And I thought, that is brilliant. Like, that is so brilliant. And there was no deceptiveness in, I mean, either maybe he's an Oscar winning actor, I don't know, but there was no deception in his explaining to me that he just thought it's a quiz you take home. It's an open book quiz, which it is
Mhm.
technically, and my syllabus doesn't say anything about like your answers must come only from the material. He thought this is an open book quiz, and he says, "I don't even," like, he says, "I just didn't know how open book it could be." So in that case, I don't classify it as cheating because there were no guidelines against it.
Yeah.
um but it did make me realize just how much they are integrating digital tools, not even necessarily AI, but digital tools overall, into their work, and how much I need to be better at clarifying. Here's what I mean by plagiarism, and giving examples of it too. So one of the things that I realized I need to do better, and this is on my syllabus now for this coming semester, is I do have a note that says if you use AI in the approved ways, then you just have to put a note in your assignment saying, here's how I used AI. Well, one of the things I realized, or I assume, is students don't know what that means or what that looks like. So I talked to one student who had used AI and they used it appropriately, but I said, all right, but the syllabus says like you've got to put a note that you used AI. And she said, okay, but where do I put that and what does it look like and what do I say? And that's when I thought, okay, you need examples of where to put that. What does it look like and what you're supposed to say? So my syllabus gets longer and longer every year, but I now have a full page, maybe 3/4 of a page, of examples of, on this kind of assignment, you might put this statement if you used AI in this way. But on this assignment where I assume you might use AI in this way, here's an example of what you might actually say. And you include the prompt that you used. And I hope that makes them feel more supported and even safe in reporting that they've used AI. Because I think right now, a lot of them, I don't know, what have you guys found? I think a lot of them right now also just feel like a little scared to say if they've used AI or not.
I think students are both confused and scared
Yeah.
out of their mind
Yeah.
because they're not getting clear direction from different professors. They may come from a more, let's say, we've highlighted our business school in the past. They are very AI forward. They may come from a business course where they are encouraged or even required to use AI for an assignment.
Yeah.
And then now
And then
they're
they go to
seeing job
Yeah.
postings,
Yep.
hearing about you're going to need it in a workplace, so they're thinking it's inevitable anyway. Sorry
Where
to interrupt, Ryan.
Well, yeah, no, but no, that's true. They're saying, okay, I need to know these skills, but then they walk into a humanities class, for instance,
Right.
where it's either discouraged or banned. So you can have a 9 a.m. some type of business class and 11 a.m. humanities class, and you have to completely switch that mindset. So
Yeah.
that's where they somewhat get confused, and that's where, and this is unfair for me to say because I'm sitting behind a microphone, not in a classroom, where I would encourage the professors to make it very clear, not not even a complete policy in a syllabus, but even by assignment by assignment,
Yeah.
because that could differ.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I, one of the things that I try to do, and I want to do more in this particular class, a lot of my classes are focused in some way on the workplace. And so I think one of the things that I think a smart student today would do exactly what you just said really well. They would learn how to switch between the appropriate AI use cases, depending on who their audience is or what the task is that they need to get done. Like a savvy student will be very good at doing that, because in the workplace today, there's also confusion, and people are using, depending on the workplace, they may be using a variety of different AI. There may be no AI use policy
Exactly.
at work. There may be a really specific AI use policy at work. There may be differing, maybe contrasting right now because like you're on this team, and they are using AI differently. And so the student who's going to be able to navigate different AI use policies, I think will be a student who's ahead of the game.
And I think the professors that we've talked to have had the biggest light bulb moments is when they realize they have to define the learning objectives to the students, define the why that they are doing that assignment. Because a lot of students, they come in, they see assignment, okay, I just have to get it done. What is the reason they're getting assigned this piece of work? And some students say, oh, well, maybe I don't actually want to use AI in that because I want to achieve this objective
Yeah.
by learning. Or others, okay, I get it. I have to use AI because I'm trying to get to this level, and that's part of the learning objective is to do that. So I think the professors who are embracing this are the ones that are saying, okay, I have to spend a little more time defining the why for the students. And I think that hopefully, I don't know, hopefully that'll help a little more.
I think so. Defining the why, defining the outcome, what skills this is
Mhm.
building. And then I also think for my own teaching, I have been trying to show students how I literally use
Mhm.
AI.
Mhm.
So if I've got time, and this is the thing, right? We're all trying to shove so much into such short amount of time anyway.
Mhm.
So it is requiring a sort of like rejiggering of the puzzle to figure out how do I get all of this done in 2.5 hours every week when I'm in the class with the students. But one of the things I'm trying to do is, I bring up AI on the screen and I
Mhm.
show them the prompts that I might use or show them the ways that I'm using it for this or that. Give them a little bit of insight into why I've chosen a certain platform versus a different one. And I think the more we can show students our own vulnerability and experimentation, they might feel more confident to ask more questions about it or,
Mhm.
go to a professor ahead of time and say, I was thinking of using AI in this way. Is that going to
Mhm.
be appropriate or not? Most students are of the mind of, ask forgiveness, not permission.
Mhm.
But I actually would love to see more students asking permission. Can I use AI in this way? Or can I do it this way?
And I'm going to get in trouble and probably get our podcast canceled right here, but I'm going to make a critique of our administration.
Okay.
All right, I gotta go real quick. I'll be back in a couple of minutes, guys.
These are Ryan's words and not Michael, but I don't think we've done a very good job of educating the students on proper AI usage and how to interact with AI.
Mhm.
Everybody's learning on their own.
Yeah.
And we haven't set the baseline of the standard for this. Students are begging for this. They are
Yeah.
begging. They want guidance. They want help. Beyond just taking ChatGPT and typing a prompt in, but learning how to partner with the thinking,
Hmm.
going back and forth, brainstorming and not just putting in something and getting an output and accepting it. Learn how to use it for research.
Hmm.
Learning how to go beyond the first response you get. Um, de- Developing a plan with AI, using it for study guides,
Hmm.
then going beyond the chatbots using, and I'm going way, but APIs to do other tools. We haven't done any of that.
Hmm.
So where are they learning? They're learning from friends. They're learning from just typing in ChatGPT. They're learning from YouTube or TikTok. Some of it's great. I mean, some of it's how I've learned. Some of it's how Michael's learned. Some of it's how we all have learned.
Hmm.
But just setting them out there and expecting the students to know how to use it properly, I think we need to do as a university, but higher education overall, a better
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. I
All
will
right,
let us off.
You back?
yeah. Sorry, someone was at my door. No, I swear I'm not trying to like go against what you're saying or anything, but like I can't help but think like these are things that I feel like they should learn earlier on in the process. Like I
But
was
where are they
learning
going to learn it from?
the elementary school, middle school, wherever. Like I think we're in a very weird spot now that I think a lot of these problems will naturally kind of get resolved because that's when I started learning about citing resources and not plagiarizing. So like I don't think
But
it
no, I don't completely disagree with you. But if we're only 3.5 years into this, and AI is being banned in high schools, where are they going to learn how to do it?
yeah,
And that's what I was going to say is I let higher education off the hook a little bit in that it is so new. And at least from my perspective as a faculty member, maybe you guys have a different perspective in IT. It came up so fast. Like it came out of nowhere for
Mhm.
me at least.
Mhm.
And
yeah.
I knew that students were using like Grammarly.
Yeah.
And I always thought, oh, that's cute. Like, a really like polished way to check your spelling. I never knew how much Grammarly can actually do.
Well, now, yes.
Now, especially now, yeah. And so to me, it came out of nowhere. And I think higher education is still scrambling to catch up. But I completely agree that many of the students are learning, they're not learning about it in a formal or robust way. I've also noticed in my own, with my own students, they're getting all sorts of different conflicting advice and teachings from their internships.
Mhm.
Many of the Wake students do internships during the summer.
And that's just what Michael said out when they get out in the business world,
Yep.
what they're seeing. Yes.
Yep. Yep. And last summer, one of the students who had used AI to completely write a personal journal reflection, her defense was that her boss, her internship boss, was saying to the interns, I don't know why you guys are doing any work anymore. If I were in college right now, I would just have AI doing all of my work. So she felt like she had gotten like the blessing from the boss. And of course, they don't really care as much about education as they.
That's a whole other
Yes,
conversation.
it's like they do what the boss says, not what the professor says. So she thought she was kind of given permission to just use AI for all of her work. And so they're coming back from their internships too with that, like in their heads of, what do I do?
Let me sum up this conversation.
Sure. Can you? Is it possible?
Students are screwed.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I think that's what we got.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. And faculty.
And faculty, obviously.
They don't get their heads around it. Faculty are as well. Yes.
Rebecca, this conversation has flown by.
Has it been? Is it time already? Wow.
We had not covered half of what I expected we'd discuss.
Yeah, it was fun though.
I'm glad it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you pick out some advice you would like to give? And you can pick your audience here. Let's go with either the students or some of your faculty colleagues. From your experience, maybe something you've done or something you are now thinking of doing.
So I would say for my colleagues, and I say this knowing that everybody has their own opinions and perspectives and reactions and responses to AI. And there's absolutely moral reasons not to use AI. There's ethical reasons. There's environmental reasons not to use AI. There's safety and security reasons not to use AI. That is a whole nother conversation I would love to come back for.
Please do. Please do.
In terms of big tech and AI. But for those faculty members who want to figure out better how to help students with it, they have to use it themselves. And I think that, I assume there's some faculty out there who aren't using it, and maybe it's not even for ethical or environmental reasons. It's just they haven't gotten around to it yet. And if you're not naturally interested in leaning into AI and you don't need to use it for any reason, then you're not going to use it. But I think my biggest advantage in being able to help students with it today is that I have been experimenting with it. And I have some guidelines for myself to make sure that, I don't use it for ridiculous questions that I know I can answer on my own. And I really try to limit, I try to make it so that the questions I am asking are ones that are, I'm going to get good answers that are actionable and productive so that I'm not just wasting resources. But I do think faculty need to know how to use it ourselves. And that probably was the advice when computers came out, right? And when email came out, and then when Wikipedia came out. It was like the way you talk to your students about it is by knowing it yourself. So that's my advice for faculty. My advice for students would be ask questions of faculty. Get ahead of the game for students. If your professor doesn't have a syllabus statement, or in the first week or two of classes, if they don't say anything about AI, raise your hand and ask about it. Get ahead of it and say, how can we be using it? And that's also going to require that your professor has an answer. So there's a good feedback loop there.
So students drag your professor along.
There's along,
Thank you. This has been a fun conversation.
Thank you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thanks again to our guests, and thanks for listening to the Deacs.AI podcast. Please continue to follow the AI discussion by subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you have any comments, questions, or want to join the discussion, please email us at deacs.ai@wfu.edu.